defending champ owns only the final 100 yards.
Last year's Indy King owns this entire weekend.
And an aspiring champ takes a big early season stride.
This and more next on Speedweek.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Speedweek. I'm Larry Newber.
And I'm Bob Jenkins. Auto racing spanned the North American continent last week from near Toronto, Canada to Baja, California, and several points in between. We begin this week's program near Indianapolis.
Well, Bob, last weekend was an off weekend for Indycars and Winston Cup, but the action was still very much Major League.
Raceway Park, Indianapolis, hosted the Busch Grand National Series and attracted some Winston Cup regulars, the entire contingent of Busch regulars, and the largest crowd ever at the IRP Oval. Tires, the major storyline, with 3 compounds from which to choose. Picking the right ones at the right time determined the winner. Franklin, Tennessee, well represented. Mike Alexander and Darrell Waltrip front row. Shortly, though, Darrell suffered engine problems, dropped off the pace, nearly causing catastrophic results for champ Larry Pearson, who lost a lap. More from Pearson in another 199 laps. Dale Earnhardt started 8th, dashed to the lead, but when Dave Davis lost the wheel, at the same time Dale lost a motor. L.D. Ottinger ran as competitively as all season, and so did Robert Ingram Jr., but both faded at 3/4. Brad Teague discovered Yankee cement just as hard as down south. Alexander and Busch North racer Kelly Moore, here in red, were contenders to the midpoint. Kelly all the way up to 3rd, but both overextended tires and forced extra stops under green. By lap 160, all learned Donnie Kreitz Jr. had decided to make no stops. Kreitz had made the field on a provisional. Mike Porter, Brett Bodine still in it for the win. And guess who? Pearson, moving around Jack Ingram here. But Kreitz was driving the best race of his 4-month NASCAR career. Lap 178, Sawyer and Pearson have moved into 2nd and 3rd, but Pearson almost cost himself a shot at the win with a near spin. 4 laps later, Kreitz bubble burst, out of fuel. He'll return, but net only 10th. Now the white flag. Leader Sawyer looking for his first career sportsman win. The lap car, Bosco Lowe.
There was a slower car in front of us, and the slower car was riding high all night long. Every time that somebody would come up on him, they'd have to pass him down low. And fortunate enough for me, I remembered that, and I knew that guy was going to stay up there high. And Elton just moved up, to pass him on the outside like the other cars, but the guy never moved over for him. He just stayed up there with him, and I just come under him. And
Larry's first win of the year and the 10th Grand National winner in 10 races. Jack Ingram was 3rd. He is amazing. Bodine was 4th, and rookie Rob Moroso, who had high school finals Friday, was 5th.
Richard Petty suffered broken ribs at Dover, but will start the next 2 Winston Cup races at Pocono and Riverside. But he will be relieved early by Joe Ruttman. And by starting the events, Petty will earn points, money, and will keep intact his personal string of 461 consecutive regular Winston Cup starts. And Tim Richmond, who's only run once this year at Charlotte, will return this weekend at Pocono and run the next 4 races.
When the Winston Cup drivers pull into Daytona for the Firecracker 400 on July 4th, NASCAR's new carburetor rule aimed at slowing the cars down will get its first test. A report from Mike Stevens.
Bobby Allison's breathtaking crash at Talladega prompted NASCAR to slow him down. Now all of the Winston Cup teams are trying to speed him up as they continue to struggle with the new 390 carburetors.
Just kind of, frustrating that you got a good engine, pulls a lot of horsepower, and then have to sacrifice it all by putting a little carburetor on it. But I understand they're trying to slow them down. It's really dangerous at those speeds at Daytona and Talladega, and we'll just have to work with it.
And for more than a month, the Wood brothers have been doing just that, testing a variety of carburetors on the dyno machine. The results of their testing have been predictable, but they haven't been very satisfying, especially from a horsepower standpoint.
Well, we're losing 105 on our worst engines and way more than that on our better engines.
Well, I've talked to like Bud Moore's son, Greg, and they're losing around 115 to 20. And he had talked to some of the Chevrolet teams, like Stavolas, and they're losing around 110 or 20.
At Daytona back in January, Kyle Petty and the Woods turned in the fastest test time at 2:09. With the new carburetor, they expect to be under 200. They also won't be surprised if the firecracker turns into a blowout.
It could end up in like be one or two cars just run away from a field, like just happen to hit the right combination. Because just because it runs on a dyno don't mean it'll run on a track.
In Stewart, Virginia, Mike Stevens reporting for Speedweek.
Now, both Daytona and Talladega are undergoing routine maintenance, including strengthening of the wheel fence. The work at Talladega has been completed, and the work at Daytona is expected to be completed in the next couple of days. Bobby Allison was among the Winston Cup drivers at Indianapolis Raceway Park Saturday night for the Grand National race, but doesn't think a smaller carburetor and slower speeds would have prevented his Talladega crash.
It would have reduced the speed a little, but I had all the wrong things happen at the right time. All the wrong things happened simultaneously to get the car up in the air and backwards. And, I think that at 10 miles an hour slower, it would have done it pretty much the same way.
Although Dale Earnhardt's Chevy has won 6 Winston Cup races this year, Ford has won 5 and is only 6 points behind in the manufacturer's standings. Some are saying the Fords are using illegal heads.
I can see that they have an advantage in the body. When it comes to the engines, I wouldn't know, but they've got a superior car all the way around right now. I mean, let's look at it like this. Anybody that's driven a Ford this year has won. Every Ford out there has won this year. Like all the rest of us, I wish the Chevrolet guys could say that, but we can't.
NASCAR approved the Ford, and they must be doing something right because the people are knocking the front gate down trying to get in, and I think the ring of the cash register might be louder than the outcry from the other competitors.
And Darrell also has some comments about the question we asked here last week. Is rough driving necessary in the sport of auto racing?
It's been going on for a year and a half. It started in Richmond, Virginia in 1986, and it's been getting out of hand ever since. Over-aggressive driving is what's got to stop, and all it'll stop is suspend drivers, fine them, whatever you want to do, but make it stick.
That 900 question concerning whether or not rough driving is necessary in auto racing brought a big response from you, our viewers, last weekend.
By a margin of almost 2-1, you said, no, it's not necessary. In this totally unscientific response, 4,615 of you, or 63%, said no, while 2,629 of you, or 36%, said it is a part of racing.
And that 2-1 margin, by the way, did not change from our first air Thursday night through our fourth air Sunday morning.
Speedweek is brought to you by B.F. Goodrich TA Radios. We make your car perform. By Quaker State Motor Oil. New Quaker State with QSX keeps your engine cleaner to last longer. And by Busch Beer. The beer with a taste as smooth as its name.
Next, the IROC meal at Mid-Ohio was a stir-fried menu.
And later out west, the showroom stockers were Morrison cooking with gas.
Bob Strange, B.F. Goodrich test engineer.
The trick to building great all-terrain tires is making them as good off-road as on. All-terrain TAs from B.F. Goodrich are tested in some of the roughest off-road situations in the world. I believe TA radials are the best performance tires in the world, and I torture them to keep them that way.
TA radials from B.F. Goodrich, tested tough to make your truck perform.
Time for an oil change, but we're not using your Quaker State. We're switching to something better. New Quaker State with QSX.
Introducing new Quaker State with QSX because car-carrying people want superior engine protection. Look at the sludge other leading motor oils leave behind. New Quaker State with QSX keeps your engine cleaner to last longer.
I knew you'd like it. Ready? Hey, no.
Now reach for the best and grab a bargain. Save $3.60 on a case of new Quaker State.
They say the best ones are the hard ones. These you don't break. You try to reach an agreement. And when you do, you head for the mountains. Busch. Head for the beer brewed natural as a mountain stream.
Head for the mountains of Busch beer.
Dodge rewrites the book on performance.
The new 1987 Direct Connection catalog. Dodge builds them hot. DC Parts make them hotter. They build them stock. Direct Connection makes them trick. The 1987 Direct Connection catalog. Performance, chapter and verse. To order your copy, call toll-free 1-800-228-4665.
The Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course held 2 major events last weekend, but had only 1 major winner. Bob Varsha reports on the IMSA GTP race.
Bobby Rahal and West Germany's Jochen Mass joined forces on Sunday to win the 500-kilometer Champion Spark Plug Camel Grand Prix at the beautiful Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in Lexington, Ohio. Teaming for the first time since their victory in the 12 Hours of Sebring in March, Rahal and Maas started their Porsche 6th in the 25-car field, moving up as others around them faltered. The huge 7-liter Ford, driven by David Hobbs and Davy Jones, lost oil pressure after just 24 of the race's 129 laps. The pole-sitting Nissan of Jeff Brabham and Elliott Forbes Robinson led more than half the race before parking with a cracked chassis. And second-generation racing cousins Michael and John Andretti struggled with the handling of their Chevy Corvette until an engine misfire forced their retirement. By lap 111, Rahal and Maas had moved to second behind the Porsche of 3-time defending race winner Al Hulbert and Chip Robinson, when Robinson suddenly pitted to replace a broken suspension bolt. With just 17 laps remaining, Rahal took the lead and cruised to Porsche's 6th win in 8 races on the International Motorsports Association Camel GT season. Their margin of victory was 28 seconds over the Porsche of Bob Wallach and Darren Brasfield, who finished second despite a failing gearbox. Third was the Corvette of Cyril Vandermerve and Doc Bundy. The Camel Lights class at Mid-Ohio saw a race-long struggle for the lead between the Pontiac Fiero GTPs of Steve Durst and Mike Brockman in number 09 and Don Bell and Jeff Klein in 01. On lap 98, Klein took the lead from Brockman and held it from there for the team's 5th win in 8 races, earning Klein the Norelco Drivers' Cup Award for the day's outstanding performance. In other events on the long Mid-Ohio race weekend, Willie T. Ribbs drove his Toyota past Jack Baldwin's Camaro and held on to win the GTO race for big-engine production-based cars. Terry Bisker scored a dominating victory in the GTU class for smaller cars driving a Pontiac Fiero. In the International Sedan race on Saturday, Parker Johnstone survived this tangle with the Mazda of Dennis Shaw to claim his 4th win in 5 races in a Honda Acura, while Shaw recovered to finish second. And the American Challenge for domestic sedans went to the Oldsmobile of defending series champ Irv Hare, who led from start to finish. From Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in Lexington, Ohio, this is Bob Varsha.
2 other support events at Mid-Ohio. Steve Knapp won the Sports 2000s, and Jeremy Dale checkered the Barber Saab race.
The other major event at Mid-Ohio, round 2 of this year's IROC. It was a race filled with spins, the first of which came moments after the green when Al Unser, Scott Pruitt, and Derek Bell slid off course, but all were able to continue. For the first 20 laps, pole sitter Michael Andretti and 7th-place starter Wally Dallenbach Jr. were out front. Pruitt would be involved in a couple of other incidents, this one with Derek Bell. Al Sr.'s second encounter ended against a dirt bank. Mario Andretti's doctor advised him to be careful out there after his Milwaukee back injury. The car didn't hit anything in this spin. Darrell Waltrip did crunch the guardrail, however. He dropped out and finished last. Here's Pruitt's 3rd spin, but he kept coming back and wound up 9th. Up front, Bobby had caught Michael and Dallenbach and passed Wally for 2nd. Then Michael got sideways just enough to allow Rahal to pass and win. With Wally 2nd, the best battle at the finish was for 3rd, but Michael held off the challenge of Al Jr. Jeff Bodine, winner at Daytona in round 1, finished 5th and retained the points lead.
When the strongest Chevy team left SCCA's Trans Am, many thought the Jack Roush Merkur team would have easy pickings. Well, so far, after 3 races, that's how it's been. Jack Scott Pruitt, pole, but a green Chris Neifels Porsche sliced from 6th start to the lead. Pruitt aggressively went after him on his first lap, but spun off on the final turn. He had a rough weekend sandwiching Mid-Ohio between Trans Am qualifying and racing. His teammate Peter Halsmer did catch and pass Chris just before Chris dropped out. Pruitt reascended a second, but he couldn't catch Peter.
The Indycars are at Portland this weekend for their annual Father's Day visit. We'll have live coverage at 4 o'clock Eastern Time on Sunday. 24 cars are entered, including Rick Miskiewicz in a second machinist union car. 3 Dick Simon vehicles are entered, 1 for himself, 1 for Ludwig Heimrath Jr., and 1 for Indycar rookie and former Super B driver John Richards from Seeley Lake, Montana.
Primary Roger Penske drivers Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan are entered in their PC-16s. Now, a lot of wind tunnel and on-track testing at Road Atlanta was conducted on the cars after they failed to perform well at Indianapolis. Team manager Derek Walker says they hope to run the Penske chassis the rest of the year. National Speed Sport News says radial tires, which created quite a bit of conversation at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway this year, will not be used at the 500-mile IndyCar race at Michigan International Speedway. Goodyear Racing Director Leo Mell told the paper that more testing is necessary before the radials can be used at the high-banked 2-mile track.
In the rest of our show, Canada's entry list is more liberal, but its answer to America's IROC.
And this wide entry list is exceeded only by the wide-open spaces they race on.
Tri-State Suspension is more than Butler County's best suspension repair. We offer complete service on a variety of vehicles, from the largest to the smallest, trucks, motorhomes, 4x4s, autos, and more. We're one of the few places in the area who can realign your twin I-beam suspension. Our work is done by the finest technicians in the business, and we stand behind each and every one. Tri-State Suspension, 191 Donald Drive, just off Route 4 in Fairfield.
If your company is outgrowing its current space, or the time has come to have your own building, then listen to this. B.D. Morgan & Company Contracting Engineers will design-build your cost-effective pre-engineered star metal building. B.D. Morgan also re-roofs and retrofits all types of commercial and industrial buildings. Call 423-9494 or stop by our offices at 211 North University. B.D. Morgan Contracting Engineers since 1922.
ESPN's World Tour slogan to win a trip to the Italian Grand Prix is Motoring in Monza. Write that slogan on a card with your name and address and mail to World Tour Sweepstakes, P.O. Box 910, Ridgely, Maryland, 21683.
Travel arrangements made through Eastern Airlines. This year, fly non-stop to San Juan, where you can easily connect to one of the many exciting Caribbean destinations. At Eastern, we've got your summer.
Several races at Mosport Park near Toronto last weekend, among them the HFC Formula Atlantic Series. From his pole position, Steve Shelton got the jump on the 19-car field. But before the completion of lap 1, Calvin Fish, originally from Norwich, England, took command.
Traffic was a bit of a problem because with the fast sweeping turns, it's a bit of a gamble to take a risk, you know, but other than that, everything was fine. The car ran great.
Steve Shelton never really let you get too far ahead. Were you watching your mirrors a lot?
Yeah, he kept me honest. He really did. You know, it was two-second gap. We dropped to 1 in traffic, then up to 3, and, you know, I just had to keep a real consistent pace going.
This was the second race of the series this year. Calvin's first win, round 1, won by Michael Greenfield, who was 4th here. Thomas Knapp was involved in a qualifying crash at Mosport. His car reportedly sheared off a telephone pole at 145 miles an hour, but Knapp escaped injury.
Bob, this was also a weekend for 3 other groups, 2 Canada's most famous support groups.
Last year, these 2 series, the Players' Challenge for GM cars, incidentally assembled in Cincinnati, Ohio, and the Rothmans' Challenge for Porsches, racing school instructor Richard Spenard won 12 of the combined total 24 races. Well, after the opening rounds this year at Mosport, he is 2 for 2. In Rothman's Porsches, last year's Formula Atlantic up the Spenard Express, but with all eyes on Richard, the Ontario native did not disappoint. The Pro Formula 2000s, that's engine size in cubic centimeters, the next teenage sensation is emerging here. Now, actually, that driver won a Can-Am race here a year ago, so he's well on his way up the ladder. 18-year-old Paul Tracy qualified for this very wet pole, but it didn't make any difference. He was still the fastest by far. While his competition was sliding and spinning around, case in point Albert Yu, Tracy was sailing along, his win 6 seconds. But sometimes looking more like Dick than Paul Tracy. He was also 3rd in the Porsche race.
Spenard, Goodyear, and another Canadian, Bill Adam, will team at Le Mans this weekend. They'll be part of a 3-car Porsche team for Walter Brunn. The Porsche factory will also field a 3-car effort, as will the European Yost team. Porsche is hoping for its 7th consecutive win and its 12th victory overall at Le Mans. 3 Tom Waukesha-prepared Jaguars, they've been dominating in Europe, are expected to give Porsche its most serious challenge this year.
The headline for this next story could read, Nerd returns for victory in Escort Endurance Championship. Actor Bobby Carradine, who stars in the Nerd movies, is co-driver along with Don Knowles of this Corvette in the SCCA Series. Saturday's race in Portland was the second of the year and only 4 hours in length. Jose Le Garza was among those competing, familiarizing himself with the track that he and the other IndyCar drivers will race on this weekend. Carradine and Knowles won the contest over another Corvette driven by Mark Dismore and Bill Cooper. Another Morrison Cook vet with Bob McConnell and Max Jones was third, and the defending series champion Archer brothers, Tommy and Bobby, were fourth. The SSA class was won by Dave Wallen's team Mitsubishi Starion with Ray Kong and Mike Rutherford. This Phoenix Racing Golf with Kurt Mathewson and William Pate led the SSB class most of the race, but fell out with suspension problems 9 laps from the end. Lance Stewart and Mark Walikachuk in a Honda won that class. Carradine divided his time between Portland and LA, where he's making another nerd film. Poor guy even has to pour his own champagne over his head in Victory Lane. Still to come on Speed Week, life's environmental and social extremes as seen through racing.
That means drag racers in the crowded east and the big city shadows, and off-roaders in the remote desolation of the arid southwest. Stay with us.
Something's stirring, and there's no denying its energy. Its arrival. This phenomenon goes by the name of Daytona. The brand new front-wheel drive Dodge Daytona. Be prepared for even more excitement per mile. Dodge Daytona. Dodge, setting new standards of performance.
Light fighters, the new light infantry. No matter where you are, in the jungle, the Arctic, the desert, or the mountains, you run out of day before you run out of challenge.
You know, all this talk about building your confidence might sound like a lot of hype. Let me tell you, hype doesn't get you to the top of this rock.
Be all that you can be.
Hey, Gal.
What?
The elevator's here.
Find your future in the Army.
Make the perfect spark plug. Last year at Champion, we rejected over 500,000 imperfect ones. Everybody makes mistakes. Ours never leave the factory.
Two off-road races are held annually in Baja, California. Now, one is the famous Baja 1000 in November, but the other one was last weekend. Jerry Garrett reports.
The race started and ended in Ensenada. It got underway before dawn on Sunday in a foggy soup that blinded racers until they reached the clear, dry, scorching high deserts. Along the way, some great class warfare developed. This was how close the mini pickup duel was between Indy veteran Roger Mears of Bakersfield, California, and his old nemesis Manny Escura of Parker, Arizona. With 15 miles to go, Escura led by 2 seconds, but Mears came home the winner after Escura broke a wheel. In the big pickups, Walker Evans of Riverside, California, suffered a late mechanical breakdown and lost a great battle to Scoop Vessels of Bonsall, California. Vessels scored his first victory here since winning the 1980 Baja 1000. In the 4x4s, Rod Hall of Reno, Nevada faced stiff competition most of the way from Butch Arciero of Laguna Hills, California. But when Arciero's new Chevy overheated, Hall took his Dodge home to a record 10th class victory in this race. Fastest overall car was this buggy of Bob Gordon and Tim Crabtree of Orange, California. They were first off the line, they led the whole way, and they finished in just over 8 hours. The last of the 288 starters to finish took nearly 23 and a half hours. Officials finally closed down the course at dawn Sunday. Reporting from Ensenada in Baja, California, this is Jerry Garrett.
And there was drag racing taking place along the East Coast. At the IHRA Summer Nationals in Atco, New Jersey, Bob Glidden was going for win number 1 in Pro Stock this year. His opponent, veteran Roy Hill. Glidden gets the victory, but it's only by a fender. Bob has a 723, Hill a 727. The funny car finals pitted Mark Oswald against Ed the Ace McCullough. Oswald's 560, 265.48 miles an hour is good enough for his first IHRA victory of the season. Pro dragster saw Gene Snow from Fort Worth, Texas against John Carey. John is a diesel mechanic and was flown by the U.S. government to the USS Stark when it was disabled recently. Snow had earlier defeated Joe Amato, who had turned in the fastest speed in IHRA history at 272.72. Snow gets the win also here, a 552 compared with Carey's 555.
This week's Bernstein File, brought to you by Quaker State, of course, reviews the procedure for changing tires in IndyCar racing.
In IndyCar racing, the pit stops are really important. They have to be quick and they have to be fast. And the cars are designed that way. They're quite a bit different than NASCAR's. First, in raising the car up in NASCAR, you use a regular jack. It takes a lot of manpower to do that. Not in IndyCars. It's an air jack on top and up she comes. The only thing you have to watch out for is when you let it down. Make sure your feet aren't underneath the tires. To change a tire, it's a lot quicker on IndyCar also. In NASCAR, you change 5 lug nuts, but there's only one with an IndyCar, on and off. And the tire's ready to go, and the driver's on his way. I'm Kenny Burns.
Now here's this week's trivia question. Who was the last Busch Grand National late model sportsman champion to become Winston Cup champion? Was it A, Dale Earnhardt, B, Richard Petty, C, Ned Jarrett, D, Bobby Allison, or E, David Pearson? Larry will have the answer in a moment.
Heaven on earth.
Don't get him started about his car.
Hey, Pete, toss me the Quaker State. This new Quaker State with QSX is a miracle. It gives car-carrying people superior engine protection.
Look at the sludge other leading motor oils leave behind. New Quaker State with QSX keeps your engine cleaner to last longer.
And that means I might spend the rest of my life in heaven.
Warn you.
Now reach for the best and grab a bargain. Save $3.60 on a case of new Quaker State. Bob Strange, B.F. Goodrich test engineer.
All week long, I test tires. But on weekends, I drive race cars. In some ways, tire testing is just as tough. Comparing one tire with another takes precision driving. I believe TA Radios are the best performance tires in the world. And I punish them to keep them that way.
TA Radios from B.F. Goodrich. Tested tough to make your car perform.
Okay, the answer to this week's trivia question. Dale's father, Ralph, was the late model champ in '56, but Dale has never won it. Richard has never raced these cars regularly, and Bobby was modified king in 1964, but never LMS. Although his son, Larry, is the defending GN champ, David Pearson never won a title. So the answer is C, Ned Jarrett, back in '57 and '58, and he's the only driver to win both series in his career.
Each week we look through hours of videotape while preparing this program. This week we found a couple of incidents that you don't see at every race. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen this before. After doing a slow rollover in the USAC sprint race at Impact Speedway in Wisconsin, Joe Gromans unbuckles and turns the car over himself. Nice upper body strength, Joe. And the term backing up is often used in racing to indicate someone is losing positions. But not Stanley Smith in last weekend's All-American Challenge race. He took it literally all the way down the front stretch. Now, if I were SportsCenter's Chris Perman, I'd probably say, back. But nah. By the way, Kevin Huntley won the USAC race, and Dave Mater III won the All-American Challenge.
Going forward. And again, remember, we'll have live coverage of the Portland IndyCar race this Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Larry Nuber.
And I'm Bob Jenkins. We'll have a report on that race and others next week on Speedweek.
Speedweek Speedweek has been brought to you by BF Goodrich TA Radios. We make your car perform. And by Quaker State Motor Oil. New Quaker State with QSX keeps your engine cleaner to last longer.